Well, this just in from the NFL, where the Atlanta Falcons have been fined $250,000 along with defensive coordinator Jeff Ulbrich, another $100,000 for failing to prevent the disclosure of the confidential information distributed to the club in the advancement there of the NFL draft. This is all part of the fallout from a prank call that Ulbrich's 21-year-old son Jax made to Shedeur Sanders there on their cell phone call to Colorado quarterback, of course sliding in that draft. But the Falcons are releasing a statement saying, and quote, "We appreciate the NFL's swift and thorough review of last week's data exposure, and then of course the event that transpired due to it. We were proactive in addressing the situation internally and cooperated fully with the league throughout the process and accepted the discipline levied to Coach Jeff Ulbrich and the organization. We are confident in our security policies and practices and will continue to emphasize adherence to them with our staff, whether on or off premises. Additionally, Ulbrich's family is working with the organization to participate in community service initiatives there in relation to last week's matter," end quote. So, of course, with all of that, we have to bring in our NFL lead insider, Jonathan Jones, for more on this. And, JJ, what's the latest you can tell us about this on both sides here?
Yeah, look, this is a hefty fine, not really for the team, right? We're talking about a franchise that if it sold later on tomorrow, it would sell for more than $6 billion. It is a hefty fine for a coordinator, $100,000. Look, you consider that he didn't do anything, right? I mean, his son was on his iPad when the email came through. His son took down the number and then, later used that along with some unidentified person, at least so far as I know, to make that call to Shedeur Sanders. A very cruel prank that unfortunately happened a little too many times across the NFL during the draft. It has over the years. It certainly did this past weekend. And so, look, there's not going to be a forfeiture of draft picks for the Falcons. I'm told that this is going to essentially close the book on any sort of punishment as it relates to this. We already had the apology in a statement. Jax Ulbrich, the 21-year-old son of Jeff Ulbrich, calling Shedeur Sanders and the Sanders family to offer an apology. The team fine, and now this individual fine of $100,000, not inconsequential whatsoever. So, I think a fairly hefty punishment here for the coach, for the team. And then also, I know a lot of folks are wondering what's going to happen to Jax Ulbrich. The NFL, with really no jurisdiction over him, not punishing him. This is something that is going to follow him around for his entire young adult career, right? I mean, he's 21 years old in college. You're going to Google his name as a potential future employer, and you're going to see this. You can forget about any sort of potential future employment in the NFL. There's going to be questions about his handling of confidential information anywhere that he goes. And then lastly, I would say Berry College, I would assume, could also potentially take some action against a student there as well, like he is. So any number of punishments that he will certainly see in the future directly related to this prank phone call.
Of course, on the other side of the story, Shedeur, he wasn't the only one, and you know this, JJ, that received a prank call. There was 4 other players throughout the draft process receiving calls. And I feel like we've seen this before, but maybe not to this magnitude. Is this a trend that the league is trying to address the situation so it doesn't happen in the future?
Yeah, so let me tell you what exactly happened with the Shedeur Sanders situation. The league sent out an email with an attachment to basically league executives with teams that had the phone numbers, the draft day phone numbers of really the top prospects, right? Anybody who was going to be on camera, anyone who was going to be in Green Bay for the draft. What then happened after that email was Shedeur Sanders got a new phone with a new phone number that was NFL only. He hadn't passed this around to anyone or anything like that. The NFL then sent an updated email to a larger group of people around the league, and that is the email that popped up on Jeff Ulbrich's iPad that Jax, his son, 21-year-old son, was able to get. And so that is the difference here. It's not necessarily because Shedeur Sanders has a famous father. It's not because he was the story of the draft. It is because it was an NFL-only number that came from the NFL. So as it relates to, I know there are numbers out there, 4 other players who got prank called. I'm actually told there are way more than that. The NFL, while looking into those matters, it's really hard to determine who got those phone numbers. You know, I've had my phone number for many, many years. A lot of people over the years have it or could pass it along to someone. And so, in theory, really anyone could have gotten any one of these college kids' phone numbers through any number of means, open source data or getting it off somebody's phone, what have you. That is the difference here with Shedeur Sanders versus everyone else. And I would just say, to answer your question about what could the league do, you know, I don't know if there's going to be some sort of centralized phone that, you know, teams are going to call from at this point. I truly don't know really what you can do, but certainly because the league has seen a rise in these prank calls, whatever the source, but certainly they are concerned when the source comes from within. I think that the league certainly will spend the next several months leading up to next year's draft, hoping to tighten things up so that this sort of cruel prank, however it comes about, does not continue to happen.
JJ, you can rest assured we would not pass along your numbers through these walls. I guarantee you that. We would not be prank calling you, my friend. As always, appreciate you joining us with that news there, of course. Tully has it in my ear, apparently. But when it comes to NFL news and everything, take a look at it. Here's the list of callers that received, hello, you got drafted, but it was just a prank. Shedeur, of course, the biggest name. We heard about it over the weekend, Cal McCord. Others, Isaiah Bond, Tyler Warren was another name that popped up, Josh Cornerly, and Chase Lund there. So a lot of guys, as JJ said, outside of the four, maybe even more receiving calls. And we've seen this over the years. But again, this time maybe trying to crack down if you're the NFL.